Well, hello, and welcome to the premiere showing of Curt's Corner. After 25 years in newspaper reporting and writing, this is my baptism of fire, so to speak, into the TV interviewed world. The plan is to continue featuring the same topics I've been writing about for the last 2.5 decades, mostly sports, but also some human interest stories in different areas, only in a different venue. And just for clarification on the spelling of my name in the logo, the 3 is silent. Okay? Now, with last week being the season opener for the Helena Senators, my leadoff hitters are a couple of former American Legion baseball players, Earl Fred and Seth O'Connell. And I'll start with Earl first, and I've got to sneak in there, even though he looks 15 years younger, Earl Fred is 90 years old. And his mind is sharper than mine, so anyway, let's get started. Earl grew up in Marysville and had been the Helena Legion shortstop in 1949 and 50. He batted .394 his final year, finishing runner-up in the club's batting race. The speedy Fred, who batted cleanup most of the season, scored 24 runs and stole 18 bases during the 20-game regular season. Now, their seasons were a lot shorter back then. Now they play, 60, 70 games? Yeah. During the year, he recorded 4 3-hit games, at least 4, including one game when he scored 6 runs and another when he stole 3 bases. The Legion placed 3rd at state and finished with a 19-4 record. Earl was also a 2-year basketball letterman at Helena High and a member of the legendary 1950 state runner-up Swish Kids. After high school, Earl and Legion teammates Larry Anderson and Dick Muffick were given a tryout by the Chicago Cubs in Billings. He decided to go to college instead, where he batted .400 for the Montana State College, now University, Bobcats. Next came a hitch in the U.S. Air Force, where as a member of Maine's All-Service Championship team in 1956 at the All-Service Baseball Tournament in Wichita, Kansas, Earl batted against the Navy's Sandy Koufax, who later on became a Hall of Fame pitcher for the Dodgers. After coming home, Earl played for the 1958 semi-pro Copper League champion Helena Wranglers. In the 3-game series versus Butte, Earl went 6 for 14 at the plate for a .461 batting average. In 1959, he captured the Copper League batting crown with a .404 average. And in 1962, playing with the East Helena Cur3t's and his double-play partner and future country and western singer Charlie Pride, he helped the Cur3t's to the Montana State League title. Earl continued on the hardball diamond until the league folded in 1965. So welcome, Earl. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I'm glad to be here.
Great. Next up is Seth O'Connell, who also grew up in Marysville. His grandfather, Bob O'Connell Sr., pitched the first ever recorded no-hitter for the Helena Legion program in 1937. He later played for the Marysville Savages, and Seth brought along his jersey, a semi-pro team in the Montana State League. Seth was a 3-year Senators player, a left-handed pitcher / first baseman. He gained a reputation as a hard worker and a tenacious competitor with a high baseball IQ. He was a great clutch hitter, and on occasion, he could take you deep. On the mound, he usually finished what he started, getting stronger as the games went along. In 2000, at the 2001 State Legion Tournament, Seth pitched the semifinals 6-5 win over Missoula to get to the chipper with a complete Game 7 hitter. The next day in the finals, he pitched the last out in the 9th inning in the 7-4 win over Great Falls for the second state title in Senators history 38 years after the first one in 1968. And the Senators then advanced to the regionals in Cheyenne, Wyoming. The next year in 2002, when the Senators won the Missoula Memorial Day Tournament Championship, Seth was named the tourney MVP. Some of his better games during the season, he pitched at least one one-hitter and one two-hitter, and in another game he went for 4 for 5 at the plate. At the 2002 state championship in the first round, 10-3 win over Missoula, Seth went 3 for 5. He then pitched the second game win, 8-3 over the Kalispell Lakers. Complete game, spread out 11 hits, and he struck out 6 batsmen. Senators went undefeated into the finals and sitting in the catbird seat against the Billings Scarlets, who had to beat them twice for the title. Magic City Crew won the first game 3-2 before the Senators bounced back for the championship victory 13-3. Seth pitched a complete game on 2 days rest, scattering 10 hits. He also went 5 for 6 at the plate and scored 3 runs. He finished the series with 2 complete game pitching wins and went 15 for 26 at the plate for a .577 batting average. Seth was named the tournament's offensive MVP and overall tournament MVP, and he might be the last guy to earn both MVPs in the same state tourney. At regionals in Lewiston, Idaho, in the final Legion game of his career, Seth went 4 for 4 in a loss to YOLO Post 77 of Woodland, California. He went on to play college baseball at San Mateo, California, and then later on, after he came home, he served as the Senators' pitching coach for several years. So, welcome, Seth O'Connell. Besides the Marysville connection, I wanted to point out that both of these guys are published authors, and Earl's book, Marysville, Its History and Its People. And you can show that up. And Earl tells me he's sold, he's five reprints, what's that called?
Yeah.
5, yeah. It's on its fifth edition. And Seth has published 2 books, the first being Drum and Tale, and his second effort, Dying in the Twilight of Summer, has sold 1,000 copies. My connection to these 2 guys is, besides reading and writing a lot about them, Earl's cousin, Lanny Fred, was my gym teacher, and his Legion baseball coach was my 9th grade freshman gym teacher at Helena Junior High.
Bernie
McGinley.
McGinley.
I went to school with Seth's aunt, Debbie O'Connell. We were in the same class. Now it's Peterson. Mm-hmm. Debbie O'Connell Peterson. Seth's dad, Bob, and I were both HHS wrestlers, although I'm a little bit older. And I worked a lot of Seth's games, sitting with his mother, Ruth, and that was very enjoyable, very entertaining. Anybody that knows Ruth knows who I'm talking about. And later on, we worked together as sports writers at the Independent Record. So now,
I didn't last as long as you did.
No, you were smarter than me. All right, well, next we're going to jump into just kind of a question and answer series, and I'll rotate back and forth between Earl and Seth. And we'll start out with Earl, and the first thing I thought of, Earl, have you got any good Mac McGinley stories that you'd like to share that are PG rated? Anything come to mind?
Good thing you added that. No, Mac was a very dedicated individual when it came to sports,
Oh, yes.
as you know.
Yeah, intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was very protective of his team in every way possible to make sure that they excelled Yeah, Mac was a unique individual.
Yes, he was. How do you treat the umpires?
Sometimes very good.
Wouldn't want to be an ump and make a bad call
He
against
had
Mac.
he had a way of explaining himself to the umpires.
Right, yeah,
Sometimes it's not too quietly, but
yeah.
he was.
Kind of the Dick Butkus theory.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, right.
Okay. So let's go over to Seth. Can you share with the audience, if you want to, your story about the time that Earl came across you guys after your grandma,
My mom, yeah. So
or was it your mom?
yeah, when Kurt and I first got together and started talking about this interview, he said, the other interviewee is Earl Fred. Do you know Earl Fred? I go, yeah, of course, we're both from Marysville. And he said, oh yeah, I knew you were both from Marysville. I go, and he saved my life one time. And Kurt kind of stopped and he goes, he saved your life? And I go, yeah. When I was in kindergarten, the Marysville Road used to be not so good. It's a lot better now that it's paved and they've taken some corners out. But we were late for school one day and it was icy and we rolled. My mom rolled. I was in kindergarten. My little brother was in the car. And we rolled off the Marysville Road. I was actually thrown from the car and my mom broke her neck. And we had to crawl up the embankment. And it was very cold and we were scared. And obviously my mom was badly injured. And Earl came along and picked us up. Again, I don't remember all the details of it. I was like 5 years old and clearly in shock at the
But
time.
you remember the rolling, correct?
I do.
The somersaults?
Yep. I vaguely remember that, especially because I'd have kind of dreams about it. But
Yeah. Huh.
I more remember Earl as just a hero for a long, when somebody.
Yeah.
That's really your first. And we'd known each other a little bit before that, but
Oh,
as
yeah.
a 5-year-old kid,
Yeah, right.
what is your memory of people? It's like, hey, this is the guy that picked you up. I just remember being enamored by that, and
Right.
yeah, and then the shared history of us both being baseball and both being authors is pretty neat. There's nobody I would rather be here with, so that's pretty
good.
cool.
That's good.
Great. Yeah. And vice versa the way. I love having you two guys at the same time. So Earl, back to you. Going to bounce back to you. The next pitch. Tell us any good stories with your tryouts with the Cubs in Billings. How did that go? What are your memories of that?
Went real well.
Yeah.
Went real well. Dick Muffick and I and Larry Anderson went down, and we tried out, and I was very successful, and as a result, I got an option for a contract with the Cubs. I was to go to Visalia, California, with a huge salary of $400 a month at that time. That was a Class D at that time.
Which is now Class A.
Class A now.
Yeah.
In preparation to go, I was hyped up naturally, and all of a sudden, Uncle Sam decided that he wanted me more than the Cubs did.
So were you drafted?
I got a draft call.
I didn't know the Air Force could draft people.
Well, that's a story in itself.
Oh, okay. He said, I'm not going in the Army.
I didn't want to walk and carry a gun.
Right, yeah.
So I went to the draft board and I told them that I'll gladly join the service, but I don't want to be in the Army.
There you go. Sure.
So they said, okay, go to Butte and take the NAVCAT test and see what happens. And so I went over there and came back, and the draft board gave me a deferment, and I joined the Air Force.
There you go. Okay. And how
But
long?
as it was, Kurt, I didn't want to walk in the Army, but I ended up walking 15 days a month,
Sure.
teaching survival to air crews in the mountains.
Ah,
Very exciting job.
well, that kept you in shape.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, and you played
This
a lot
was
of
in
baseball.
the high Sierras, above Lake Tahoe most of the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was my. So I always wonder, in the back of my mind, if I could have made it in the bigs.
Yeah. Exactly.
but I'll never know.
How long was it between the tryout and the getting drafted?
About 4, 5 months, somewhere in there.
Wow, what a hit! You're like looking
Yeah,
forward to this.
I was
and
ready
it's
to go.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll never know.
Yeah, that's the way, like the guy in Field of Dreams, Burt Lancaster, when he tells that story. Okay, we're going to go back to Seth for a minute. Any good stories on your grandfather's? Was it Bob Sr.? Is that what he went by, or
Well,
just-
I don't know if he was Bob Senior because there was
just Big
another
Bob.
Bob. Yeah, there was another Bob above
Okay.
him too.
So Grandpa Bob's.
So yeah, I didn't. He didn't talk. He didn't really talk about himself ever. But he didn't talk a lot about his baseball career. Mostly, he'd pass on knowledge. He taught me how to throw a curveball. He was a big curveball guy, and I remember, that was the time where a lot of people were scared to teach youth curveballs.
Yeah,
And
how
he was
old were
never-
you when he taught you that? Because I remember when I was in Little League, you weren't supposed to throw a curveball.
I was pretty young. I was probably 10 or 11.
Yeah.
I would say. And he was never. He's like, no, you throw it right, and if you learn to, he'd always say, it's not a slider. You don't twist your elbow. You pull
Oh, yeah,
the pitch down.
sure.
So yeah, he didn't talk. I know there were several times besides Marysville that he took jobs based on baseball teams. So I think he drove a bus for Yellowstone for a couple summers because he played for their baseball team.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad would know more about it. There was a couple different times where he bounced around based on.
And the State League
good
was a
baseball team.
big deal back in those days, in the late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah.
State League baseball was.
Yeah, he loved
Huge.
it. I know that, and he was always a very adamant fan. One time when I was 9 years old, I was walking kids, having a hard time, and my dad wouldn't take me out of the game. And I remember I started crying, and I distinctly remember this conversation. After the game, my grandpa waited, and my dad was really embarrassed and mad, and my grandpa took me aside, and he's like, listen, it's a game, and I will come here and I will support you forever, but you cannot let this game make you cry. And I think that had a lot to do with
There's no crying
kind
in
of the-
baseball.
but I mean, really, my approach to the game of it just being like,
Yeah.
remember, it's a game, and
Yeah.
you got to treat it that way.
Good, that's a good lesson. Okay, back to Earl. Where were you stationed at in the Air Force playing baseball? And we'll start with that, and then we'll go into your Sandy Koufax story.
Well, originally I was stationed in Reno, Nevada, at Stad Air Force Base, and that's where we headquartered to take our crews out into the forest.
Ah,
And then I got transferred to Caribou, Maine, at Loring Air Force Base, and I was sent up there to run a survival school. And when I got there, they didn't know anything about it, so I was just
This is a month-
there. I was
yeah.
just there.
this is a Montana kid, we'll keep him in the forest, huh?
Yeah. So they said, well, we don't have a survival school, so you're not going to be able to run one. And I said, well, that's fine. So they assigned me to the gym,
Oh,
which was great.
that's what I did in the Navy.
I enjoyed that. The only job I had was to unload aircraft coming back from overseas, unload their parachutes and get them to the repack place, and then practice baseball. That was my job,
Wow, yeah.
which was really good.
Yeah.
That's a good job if you can get it.
Yeah, it was.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was very nice. I enjoyed it very much.
Great. So, tell us about the tournament where.
Well, we
With the
won
Sandy Koufax.
we won the State of Maine championship, service championship, and got to go to Wichita, Kansas to play. And we're all service, Marines, Army, Navy, etc.
And the name of your team was the Bombers.
The Bombers,
Right.
yeah. The Navy brought in Sandy Koufax off a ship to pitch in the tournament against the teams.
Brought in a ringer.
And,
Yeah, the ringer.
at that point in time, Sandy Koufax didn't mean much to me.
Right.
He was just another pitcher.
Right.
But I'll tell you, he was a pitcher that you'll never forget.
Yeah.
I was at bat 3 times, and I don't think I got the bat off my shoulder. He was so fast, it was unbelievable.
Wow. 100-mile-an-hour fastball, probably.
He was really good.
Yeah. Wow.
I've heard the saying, hitting off Sandy Koufax is like trying to drink your coffee with a fork.
Yeah. Good explanation.
I've heard that before.
Well, I also heard when he got to the majors, when he finally learned how to pitch, became a pitcher instead of a thrower, that he had a chance to pitch a no-hitter every time he went out. And he ended up with, I think, 4 of them.
Yeah,
And retired really young.
He was really
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
So yeah, it was an experience.
Wow.
yeah. Well, you might be, well, we'll come across that in a second. Seth, can you tell me your dog pile story about winning the first championship in '01, pitching the last out, and then coming back the next year and winning the second championship?
Yeah.
The dog pile story.
Yeah, so I told Curt this story. So my junior year, we really had to come on strong to make the state tournament. In fact, I think we had to win 5 of our last 6 games even to qualify. We came in as the 8th seed of an 8-team tournament. You know, there wasn't, you know, we believed in ourselves, but there wasn't a lot of hope that we were like going to win the champ. You know, you get there and you know you're playing Billings.
You were the
and
underdogs.
Yeah, you were the underdogs,
Yeah.
and then we got to the championship game, and it still hasn't really set in. You know, we're excited, but they brought me in, as Curt explained, just for the final out. And I remember the batter swung at a very bad a pitch I'd already decided. I was like, oh, that's a ball. And the guy kind of swung at it, and the game was over, just like that. And none of us knew what to do, so we were like, yeah. And we kind of gathered by the dugout, and it was kind of setting in. And then I remember before we even lined up to shake the other team's hands, everyone's like, you know, you're supposed to dogpile when you win the championship. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I didn't even know I was going to get into the game. So the next year we kept talking about it, you know, and obviously it's a long shot to, you know, it was our first championship in so long. So it was already a long shot, but we would talk about it. And so I remember before the end of the game, my catcher, Jake, was like, don't forget, you know, we're going to dogpile you if we win. Because our second championship game was not a close game. I don't remember the score, but we like 10 run them. It was
13-3.
Yeah, we 10 run them. So when that game was over, we made the final play, and I real dramatically fell down, and everybody dogpiled on me. And there's a picture that sits on my desk.
And you're at the bottom.
I'm at the bottom, and I didn't
about
get
15
injured.
guys laying
Yeah.
on top of you. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's a memory that's pretty special for me.
Great story. Let's jump back to Earl. Oh, I thought that was interesting that you played with a guy on the Bombers that made it to the big leagues.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Tell us the story about that guy,
Earl Francis
Earl Francis, and did he pitch?
pitched for, ended up pitching for Pittsburgh Pirates.
Right.
He was our #1 pitcher, naturally.
And he was your #1 hitter too,
Yeah,
right?
#1 hitter.
He batted like 600 or something,
Yeah,
550.
He was just an outstanding individual. Super nice to begin with. I went to see a Pittsburgh game, and he was pitching, and I went down to get to the dugout to visit with him, and they stopped me right away.
Yeah.
He said, I'll see you outside after the game. So
Yeah.
I had a nice visit afterwards, and he was doing real well.
Right. And what's his name again?
Earl Francis.
Earl Francis.
How long did he play in the show?
That I don't know how long he was there, but
We'll have to check that out.
Very cool, yeah.
Yeah,
he
I'll
was
look him up.
really, really good.
Yeah. Well, I was looking at those stats, and he had like, 565 batting average or something like that, so he could hit too.
He was good,
Yeah.
and he was big,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
big individual.
That helps
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, it helps.
Yeah. Okay, back to Setter. I can call him Setter. I sat with his grandma and heard him call it Setter for 3 years. Now you talked about Jake, your catcher, who reminded you of the dog pile, but he's had a storied career as a catcher. The stories I heard about him is when he would get mad if you weren't pitching well or throwing the wrong pitch or whatever, that he had the best arm on the team and threw it back harder than it came in. So tell me some stories about Jake Samuelson, the Rattler.
Yeah.
Because every pitcher needs a good catcher, correct?
In every program, I think
program,
a program, and I think any coach would really support that you're only as good as your catcher. He's involved in every single play. So is the pitcher, but only once every 4 days, whereas the catcher's there all the time. And yeah, Jake was a pretty special individual from a family of catchers. Both his brothers were Legion catchers. And yeah, he had a way to communicate with you. If you weren't doing well, he wasn't going to come out there and give you the soft love. He was going to come up in front of that plate and just whip that ball at you pretty hard. And we were telling a story when Curt and I got together about umpires. Sometimes an umpire would be squeezing us, or you'd get a strange strike zone, and we'd communicate about that. Or Coach Tennis would come out and be like, "What's going on with this strike zone today?" And yeah, he played a big part in not just my career, but I think a lot of our success. Shameless plug, he's got his Mountain Berries Bowls. I just drove by it going on over there at the Centennial Park. So if you haven't tried one of those, they're really good. But
cool.
In the championship game, aside from what we just discussed, there was a runner stealing, and I turned around and I ducked because he was throwing him down, and the ball kind of came out of his hand funny, and it hit me right in the ribs.
Ouch.
And yeah, I was telling Curt, I was like, I wish I could throw that hard. It was harder than any pitcher's ever hit. You're not ready for it, and you're just like, and of course he said sorry, but I was like, that doesn't really help me right now. Yeah, he was a pretty good guy, the Rat Boy.
And there were like, what, 4 or 5 of those Samuelson boys that played for the Senators?
Yeah, three different catchers, and they all had nicknames, it was kind of.
Slosh.
Yeah.
How about Coach Tennis? Any good Coach T stories come to mind?
Yeah, Coach Tennis is one of my role models to this very day. A guy that taught me a lot about how to live correctly. A lot more than just about baseball, I would say. He was always put the individuals. He cared about you more than he cared about winning, and you felt that. And I think the kids, anybody that's ever played for him, really knew that was the most important thing to him is, your well-being, your education, and then baseball could kind of come last. Now, I think a lot of coaches can say stuff like that, but they don't always stand by that when the chips are down. And
yeah, right.
And Coach Tennis always proved that to me. And like I said, I've learned a ton about who I am from him.
Yeah, cool.
That's good.
Okay, Earl, back to you, and this kind of connects with your Sandy Koufax. I was thinking, I wonder how many people have batted against Sandy Koufax and played baseball on the same team with Charlie Pride.
I don't know of anybody.
Which is what you did.
Yeah.
So you were at shortstop, he was at second base. I know he moved around a little bit, he played some third base, but you were shortstop, second base in '62 when you guys won the state league.
Right.
So any good Charlie? I know you've got a picture of yourself with Charlie somewhere, you told me.
Yeah.
Somewhere. You'll find it.
Someday.
When you're not looking for it. But
I got a book written by Charlie.
Oh yeah, his biography. I've got that too.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I met him when I was 10 years old, but that's a different story. Any good Charlie Pride stories?
Charlie was another unique individual. We were practicing at Smelterite Park in East Helena. Charlie got off the train going through. He was headed back home. He got cut from a team on the coast someplace.
Missoula.
Was it Missoula?
Yeah.
Okay.
Timberjacks.
He got cut. He was headed home. And he got off the train in East Helena and happened to see the practice going on. He wandered over there and got to talking with Kes Rigler, who was our coach at that time. Kes was very instrumental in the Smelterite, or in the East Helena Smelter. Right. And they got to visiting, and Kes said, well, would you be interested in staying around playing ball? Well, naturally, Charlie said, well, I'll do anything to stay because I don't want to go home and pick cotton.
Right.
And so Kes got him a job at the smelter, and he started playing with us. Before the ball game, Charlie would go sit in the stands and play his guitar, and his boys, 2 boys, would pass the hat.
Sure. It's starting at the bottom.
And then after the game, Charlie would go over to the U&I believe it was called, and
Yeah.
play music for the dancers.
Yeah.
He would, we'd go to Anaconda and Missoula and those places to play ball, and he'd sit in the back seat and play his guitar.
Uh-huh.
And at that particular time, you couldn't really understand much Charlie said. He had the southern drawl.
Oh.
But he's had some voice lessons naturally.
Yeah. And what a voice.
He, yeah, he was a very unique individual.
Yeah. Now, how about a ball player? Because his first goal was to play in the big leagues, like most.
Yeah, Charlie
most
was a good
players.
ball player. He really was. He was better at third than he was at second, but he was an all-around good player.
Right. And he used to be a pitcher too, but I think he might have hurt his arm. I don't think he pitched
No,
by
he didn't
62. I
pitch.
think he didn't. He
No,
was
he
done
didn't
pitching.
pitch for us. But
Yeah.
yeah, he was
Good.
a good teammate.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, back to Seth. You know, I thought of a question. I don't know if people ask this a lot, but you know, first of all, what were your best pitches? And second of all, if you had to do, because you were, you know, at least a 3-tool player, probably 4 or 5. You did hit for power once in a while. Great average hitter. But if you had to choose between your best pitches on the mound and then between the 3 principles of pitching, hitting, and playing defense, what was your favorite?
So we'll do the pitching. Pitching first. I was a prototypical thumber. I was a soft thrower. In fact, not many kids. Again, when we go back to the mental approach, not very many kids have the understanding that when they're hitting you, kids want to throw harder. And I was really good at realizing, if you throw softer, then guys get out on their front foot and they can't. So I was always an off-speed guy. Yeah. My best pitch was probably my curveball, but I had a good change. Everything works off the fastball, so it's hard to just say, you know, it was always, I was always looking to get the batter off balance more than to strike the batter out, I guess.
Oh, sure.
And then on the second question, that's a great question, because I chose to pitch in college. I think I had the option to try either one, and I chose to pitch and focus on pitching. And Doug Williams, who's still the coach at College of San Mateo, is maybe one of the best hitting instructors around. And I remember about a month into it, I was like, I should have been a hitter. Those guys are still considered athletes, and you know they get to play every day. And because the hard part about pitching, you know, when you're in high school, you love pitching because you get to dominate the game. You can take over the game and you can have more impact on a single game. But when you get to college and you only get to play every 3 or 4 games, when you have a bad outing, that sits with you for a much longer amount of time than hitting. So
psychological.
So I think it's that grass is always greener on the other side. I think I want to believe I would have been a better hitter in college, but I always thought of myself mentally as a pitcher. I think I had that left-handed pitcher approach.
Mentality.
Yeah.
Wow. At least you weren't a wild lefty, huh?
No, I definitely wasn't wild. I knew where it was going. If I hit you, it was probably on purpose.
Okay, good. So tell me your college story. I wanted you to repeat that, if you would, about the license plate.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I moved to California. I decided I was going to go to California. My family was...
Now, your uncle...
Mark Radley.
Mark Radley, yeah.
Yeah, so he wasn't living there anymore, but his girls were living there. And so that was my connection to San Francisco. That was part of why I had the opportunity to go play there. My family was very worried about me moving to, from Marysville, Montana to one of the largest metropolitan areas in the country, if not the world. And I bought my grandma's car. She had a 1990 maroon Lincoln Continental, leather seats. It was a really high-end car 15 years earlier. I bought that. I drove it down there. It broke down on the way down there. My dad and I had to get it fixed. Got down to California, and there was no place to live. My expected place to live fell through.
Wow.
So I was living with my cousins, driving across the San Mateo Bridge, 30 minutes to college every day, one way.
Wow.
And, I didn't know
4 or
anybody.
5, 6 lane traffic
Yep.
going both ways.
Yeah, just putzing along like
A little different than the Marysville Road.
like a Marysville guy. And I'm telling people, I'm like, yeah, I'm from a town of about 40 people, and I'm related to most of them. And they're like, are you sure you're not from like West Virginia or something? I'm like, no, I'm from Montana. And they're like, it does sound strange now that I think about it. And so everybody started calling me Montana. And about the third practice in, I was getting down to practice, and the main parking lot cost money, and I didn't have any, so I didn't park in it. And I found a little place that I could kind of hide back where the maintenance crew parked, and I went back there, and we practiced it kind of in a hole below a big hill. And we're practicing, I'm getting warmed up, and I hear my coach yell, "Montana!" And everybody stops. "Yeah, coach." I run over there, and he goes, "I just got a call that campus police are about to tow a maroon Lincoln Continental with Montana license plates." He goes, "How long do you think it took me to try to figure out whose car that was? Is that your car, Montana?" I go, "Yeah, coach, that's my car." "Go move your car and don't park there anymore." So I ran up there and moved my car. And, yeah.
That's a great story. Yeah. Okay, back to you, Earl. What I was curious about, so the State League folded in 1965, which I believe was your last year playing hardball baseball. Did you have any thoughts of playing softball, fast pitch softball, which some of the guys did when they transitioned, got a little bit older and got away from baseball, or was that never a thought?
Never a thought.
Yeah, because Dick Muffick was the same way.
Yeah.
He said, if I can't play baseball, I'm not
I
playing
had
softball.
never had a desire to play softball.
Okay. And then that
Not that I didn't play softball, it's
Right.
in the fun part of it.
Yeah.
Picnics
and stuff.
and stuff like that. Yeah.
Sure. So let's talk about that Marysville co-ed team that you were talking about.
You really want to hear that?
Yes. And now that was baseball, right?
Yeah, that was baseball.
Okay. So it was co-ed with the gals playing hardball, fast pitch baseball.
Yeah.
And then tell the folks the rest of what kind of game it was.
It was very exciting. First of all, the field was exciting because the left fielder was down in the creek. The ground sloped off so fast that he was down there in the swamp, is what it was. So he'd look over every once in a while to see what was
Had to peek over
what was going on.
peek over the crest. Huh?
Yeah.
Here it comes, Charlie.
And
then the beer.
we had a keg of beer at each base, and the thought was to get a hit naturally, so that you could get to base.
Right.
And as the day wore on, the excitement got better, and
The play got worse, maybe.
play got worse.
But more fun.
More fun.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
That's funny.
Winding down here, Seth, can you update us on your latest coaching stint? What and who are you coaching now?
So yeah, I stopped. I stopped coaching Legion, not because I didn't love it. I loved coaching Legion. I might have loved coaching more than I liked playing on. I really enjoyed it, but I had twins. I had 2 young children, and my wife was like,
Boy and a girl.
"Yep, boy, girl," and my wife was just like, There's just too much travel, as you alluded to. It's a 60, 70 game season. You're out of town all the time in the summers. So I quit doing that, and I had no. I would help a little bit, but I had no connection with baseball. And then last year, for the first time, I started coaching coach pitch with my 7-year-olds who were then 6, and I love it. It's so fun. We had a game last night. We squeaked one out, 28-7. We won. Yeah, in a 4-inning game, the other team only got us out twice. So we actually stopped scoring at 7 runs a game. So I think we're playing pretty well. And the other coach said, "Well, are you guys stacked?" I go, "We're almost all first graders. We like doing it, But I think the thing I really love about coach pitch, going back to the pitching, is you almost have to hit their bats. I just tell them, I'm like, you swing how you're going to swing, and I'll make sure you get a hit. And I really try to hit their bats and learn their swings so that I can help them out. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's fun.
Cool. That's a lot of fun. I know tennis, after he retired from the Senators, he was coaching Caden.
Yeah.
His Cal Ripken team.
Caden's here tonight.
That's
Caden's
something,
playing
yeah.
the Independence tonight.
Oh, wow.
That's something you should continue to do.
I hope so. Until it gets serious, I want to keep doing it. I think
Yeah.
once it gets serious, it'll be hard for my children to listen to me. And it's really nice too, because my boy and my girl play on the same team.
Yeah.
You know, and I like that. I like that I get to coach them both, even though their personalities and their approach is so different.
I think kids that age need all the help they can get.
Right. Okay, well, we're going to close out with the final question, and to me, obvious last question for anybody. What's your favorite memory of your baseball career? Earl?
My favorite memory?
Or memories? Or if you just want to put the whole thing in one thought.
I think my favorite memory is really being able to compete like I did in all aspects of it. And the people I played with. I'll never forget some of those folks.
Bingo. Seth?
Yeah, to go off what Earl said, I would say the same thing. It's the people you meet,
Yeah.
the experiences you have. I mean, the first thing that jumps to my mind is winning a state championship, but that's not, I think really it's the overall experience, the bus trips with the guys, the goofing around, the getting snacks afterwards, staying in hotels, just the camaraderie of the game. Yeah, it's a game I love. It's a game I still really enjoy.
Right. America's game.
I'll tell you a Bernie McGinley story.
Yeah, go ahead. Go
Bernie
for it.
McGinley. We were playing in Butte. Butte at that time was known for its roughness, I guess I'll say.
Yeah.
Still is.
We won the game.
And Bernie is from Butte.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were headed home. We got almost to the top of the hill going out of Butte, and the highway was packed with automobiles and kids, and they stoned the bus. Bernie was screaming about, get on the floor, get on the floor. Bill Barden was the bus driver. They broke every window in the bus.
Oh, jeez.
Nobody got hurt, thank goodness, except Bill's bus.
Yeah.
But that was typical at that point in time, I guess.
Yeah, it was a different time, and Butte was.
But Bernie
was
Bernie
notorious.
handled it very well. He made sure that nobody got hurt.
Yeah. I thought
Glad
maybe he'd
that never
jump out and
happened
take
my way.
on the whole team. But
Yeah.
okay, well that wraps it up. That wraps up my first show, folks. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I have. I want to thank our guests, Earl Fred and Seth O'Connell, and thank you for watching. If you'd like to be a sponsor of Curt's Corner, call me or text me at 406-594-2878. Another way to remember that is 406-HEY Curt, or send me an email to CURT52SYNNESS@gmail.com. And so long for now. Thanks for watching.